Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. It's really nice to see so many people here. My name is Nell Cardozo and I'm the Development and Engagement Officer at the HippFest Silent Film Festival. And today I'm really excited to be joined by Lisa and Alison, who I'll let introduce themselves.
My name is Alison Strauss and I'm the founder and director of the HippFest Silent Film Festival, which is Scotland's only silent film festival celebrating silent film with live music, and it takes place in the Hippodrome, which is Scotland's oldest cinema.
And I'm Lisa Hoen and I am from Norway. I'm the festival director of Tromsø International Film Festival, which is not a silent film festival. It's an international film festival where we present art house films from all over the world. And this festival takes place in January up in the Arctic part of Norway, in Tromsø, where I also live. You will see some photo. Yeah, there's already a photo there. And we also run an old cinema building. It's called Verdensteatret. It means the World Theatre, which I think is a beautiful name. And it opened in 1916. And we also run the Silent Film Days in Tromsø, which is a silent film festival. And that happens every year in April.
I hope you're all excited to hear a little bit about film festival direction and about this kind of small corner of the film kind of world that we've carved out, which is listening to and presenting silent film with live music. It's quite an adventurous type of cinema. And I've only been working in film festivals for about a year now, and it's been a really exciting journey, and I've kind of been constantly amazed by the kind of way that everybody works collaboratively and this really interesting kind of ecology that film festivals rely on to some extent. And we have a short video to introduce both of the film festivals to you.
Should we move that the way?
Unbelievable. I mean, absolutely pitch perfect, pin sharp, on point all the way through, and the emotion was conveyed through the music. The humour was there. It was very cleverly done.
This is absolutely the way to do it, and I would love to see more people, out of a matter of trust, going, all right, I'll give that a go, because I think they will be very pleasantly surprised.
The music was amazing.
I'd like to help set up the joke with the music, so you a rhythmic thing and then punches here and there.
Well, I think we both enjoyed it a lot. I love all the bumps and when they fall off ladders and all the chings and the bangs.
Hitting, slapping, whatever.
The goat was funny, wasn't it?
The goat was very funny.
Yeah.
Where they put it under the bed.
Yeah.
There was tons of babies.
Sonic Both is an inclusive ensemble, so some of us have additional support needs and some of us don't.
It's very interesting. I've only had pianists solo before.
We're mainly involved with experimental music.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good.
We're never quite sure what is going to happen all in the night. So that's interesting and or terrifying.
It's an escape from your phone. This is a perfect way of forgetting that whole world exists.
The music is different pretty much every time, and it brings it to life. and this gives you a sense of shared experience, which I think people miss. It's a wonderful way to spend time.
You can't really get this experience anywhere else, and you see the excitement that generates for an audience.
HippFest is not like any other film festival I've been to. It is genuinely a time machine and full of humour, full of fun. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
This was my first one, but it definitely won't be my last one.
Top quality musicians. Live performance is different. It hits different, you enjoy it different.
Timeless.
You have to witness it to understand it.
Definitely recommended.
Definitely.
And it was funny. Put it in your diary.
So as you can see, they're quite different festivals. You might think, how different can two silent film festivals really be? It's quite a niche kind of corner, but they are very different, and I wondered if maybe we could kind of go back to actually I'll maybe introduce why we're here together, which is that we were lucky enough to visit Tromsø in April as part of a kind of development trip to learn about the festival, and to actually really kind of learn about those different ways of approaching silent film festival programming. But maybe you guys could both talk about how the festivals came to be and where you started off and where you saw a kind of, I guess, a need for this film festival. Maybe you could start, Lisa.
Okay, I can start. I just wanted to ask a question because I like to know who I'm talking to. So I can see all of you here, and I know you're from Edinburgh and Glasgow University. I'm just wondering, is a lot of you foreign students? How many of you are foreign students? Raise your hand. It's quite a lot. And where are you from? Just shout out some. China. A lot of people from China. Is everybody from China? No, Poland. Poland, yes. Czech Republic. Chile? Wow. Okay, I was just thinking also, but they probably know a lot about silent films, maybe from your countries. So maybe we need you to give us some advice about that. Well, thank you. I have also been studying in Britain. I studied at the University of Westminster, media and journalism, back in the 90s. So I have the same experience of being a foreign student. Yeah. Well, thank you anyway. Just nice to know who you are. A little bit about you too. We started out actually in 2006 with the Silent Film Festival, and our main festival, the Tromsø International Film Festival, we have been running that since 1991. What happened in 2005 was that the cinema in Tromsø, the cinema run by the municipality, they built a new, multiplex cinema, and they moved in there, and they didn't know what to do with this beautiful old cinema, the one you saw, Verdensteatret. Our festival, we are a foundation, and we said we can be in this house, and we would love to run this as a cinematheque and art house cinema. So we started working with financing for that, and at the same time we were thinking this cinema building, it's built for silent films. We have really good acoustics, for example, and it's very nice to perform music there. A lot of musicians love to perform in the cinema. So we started out both as a cinematheque. I don't know if you have that expression in Britain. Yeah. So you show films from the film history. I mean, we show modern films as well, but also films from the whole film history. And then we wanted to really dive into the silent films and have a festival and use live music. And actually the festival had been working with this, I think, since maybe 1992 or 1993. Every year the festival in January had one silent film project with live musicians. For example, the man with the movie camera with electronic music, because Tromsø had a really great scene for electronic music during the whole 90s, and we still also now have an electronic music festival. So we have been working with silent films for many years, but not as deeply as we decided to do. And we started out in 2006. And the main issue was also to show people in Tromsø and people from other places what cinema was like back in the days and what this building was built for.
Mm-hmm. It's similarly, the origins of the HippFest, the HippFest Silent Film Festival, are really tied up with the cinema itself. And so the cinema is in Bowness, but it had lain derelict. It had closed in the 70s, turned into a bingo hall, and lain derelict for a couple of decades, and then was restored and reopened in 2009. And that's when I joined the organisation just before it opened. And I was charged with kind of creating the artistic programme for the cinema. And part of the reason that the council, the local authority, got behind the reopening was that the cinema was conceived to be a spearhead for regeneration of the town, because the town is high on all these indices of social deprivation, high unemployment. It's a former mining town. And there was this real move to try and invest in the centre and bring life and culture back into the town and make people proud to be in that town. And so it was quite evident that we needed something to put the cinema on the map, and a festival is the perfect thing to do that, to draw attention, to draw people from far and wide. And yes, and just the idea of it being it could have been a festival of anything, but I think it's quite important to find your unique niche, and also the fact of it being a silent cinema was the perfect marriage between the cinema itself and the birth of the medium. So yeah, the cinema was first opened in 1912. Right in the middle of the silent era, and like the acoustics are really good, and the musicians love playing there, and so that's really how the idea was started.
I really like the way that you described the idea of recreating the experience of going to the cinema when the kind of original cinema goers would have been going to both the kind of the theatres that you speak about, and I wonder if, as well as the kind of live music element that we'll come on to, what are some of the other ways that you kind of honour that heritage and kind of hark back to that and think about the experience as a whole of recreating that? I know you've got like an amazing bar at the Verdens Teatret, which kind of helps bring the crowd in. And are there any kind of other ways that you, I guess, sort of create that really exciting kind of performance and live atmosphere beyond the kind of the music?
I mean, we've done it sort of literally you saw some footage there of our Friday night gala, where this year the idea was to recreate that kind of variety act feeling that you'd have at the cinema, where you'd have the film, but you'd also have somebody coming on and juggling mattresses and doing contortion and magic tricks and all that kind of thing. So we reproduced that. And I think as well, just it's making little quotations for how things used to happen in the past. So in the original proprietor of the Hippodrome was called Louis Dixon, and in the heyday of the cinema, they'd do geely jar screenings where you could bring a jam jar and you would get into the cinema for a couple of shillings or cheaper than you would otherwise. And so that's a tradition that we've revived. So people bring a clean jam jar and they get in 2 for 1 on a Saturday morning. And that's the kind of thing as well that really piques the interest of the journalists, and it gets people, people find those funny little quirks quite appealing.
I think for the grown-up audience, we don't have any special like really events or parties, but we have the bar, as you say, so you can hang out afterwards, and you can also have a drink with you. Bring a drink into the screening if you like that. I think we work more with the kids and trying to mediate what kind of making our cinema like a time machine, so they travel back in time with us. So we have always at the festival school screenings. So we have found out that for the 11 years old, silent cinema is perfect, the comedies. So they love this concept. I mean, they have never seen anything like it. When they come into our cinema, they have maybe never been there. Some people have never been to a cinema also. We must not forget that not all families visit the cinemas. And you know, it's like these old paintings and really old-fashioned. And we have the pianist there, because we always use a pianist, like the classical concert, silent film concert for the kids. And we present comedies for them. Right now we're working with Sherlock Jr. With Buster Keaton, and it's really like the perfect experience for that age group. They laugh so much and they love it, and they have never seen anything like it, because I don't think they've seen a lot of silent films on the TV. And it's this live aspect, and then we also talk to them something which is really important for us, and as a festival also in January, it's a little bit about formats, because since we're running the old cinema, we have 35 millimeters, we have 60 millimeters, and of course digital formats. And we try to always have some 35 millimeters screenings. Do you all know what this is when I talk about it? It's the old film rolls. And it's also another experience, I think, to watch films on 35 millimeters. It has another feeling to it on the screen. So we also show the kids, you know, this film roll and the film, because they are just used to pushing a button somewhere when they're turning on their TVs, and they don't know anything about old formats. So we also tell them a little bit about how films were presented back in the days.
And I think as well, another thing about how programs were constructed in that era, like having local topicalities. And in fact, the Hippodrome was the brainchild of this entrepreneur who realised that, because he used to film an annual event in the town, the Bowness Fair, and he used to then rush away and develop it and project it back to people in the town hall and charge them to come in, but realised quite cannily that if he built his own purpose-built picture house, then he could make much more money and show the topicals in there. So that's, again, we try and we often show the films that the original proprietor made, the Bowness Fair films, little clips from them, and they go down so well with the audience, because a lot of the audience is from Bowness, and you know, even though they're from like the 20s, there will be people saying, "Isn't that my great?" You know, so well, that was my school, but also anything to do with local history or Scotland, or you know, just our heritage. People and you have this. I know you have the same. You'll show Norwegian film or Sami people, or things that have a connection with the town, is something that, you know, they understood right at the beginning of cinema, and something that we
because
now.
it was an arena for people to socialise, and they didn't. That's where they came together. So it's really nice to kind of bring that back and bring in hooks that people in the town recognise. And I like the way you sort of talked about the Verdens Theatre being like the window on the world, and that idea of sort of it serves a kind of civic purpose. And I think it's really interesting that festivals somehow manage to recreate that, even if they're dealing with something that's like a completely new material, or even if they weren't silent film festivals. There's this kind of really nice way that they bring people together to watch film, which is it, even just doing that, you're kind of harking back to that original purpose of those cinemas being built. And I really like the way that you, Lisa, mentioned talking about kind of working with archival film and how different it is, and ways to kind of bring that into your kind of education and to make the visit exciting for children. And I guess working with archival film is quite challenging sometimes. I wonder if you could talk a bit about what your experience of working with such old films is, and how you kind of bring those to life, but also how you make them contemporary and make them interesting to the audiences that come to your festivals today.
Well, there's lots of challenges.
Lots of challenges.
We could talk about challenges all afternoon, but I think
maybe your considerations in
yeah, considerations. Well, just to say, accessibility is one thing, because it's great nowadays. You can research the archive collections of international archives all over the world from your own laptop, and that's fantastic. But it's not necessarily the case that something that you can stream at home on YouTube or whatever is something that you could get a good quality screening material of. That's one thing, and another consideration is around clearances, rights clearances. It's not. I think it's fair to say it's much less straightforward with silent film, because you have the history of studios. They change name and change ownership, and you have to try and trace things back. And also you have a whole other strand of rights which are to do with the person or the estate that donated the physical material to the archive as well. So there's multiple rights to clear. But that's probably enough scary challenges to solve with.
It's a little bit fun as well.
Yeah.
You have to be like a detective, to find traces. Where can I find this film? We had, for example, a Swedish, The Wind, that was filmed by a Swedish director, but filmed in the US. And this, Sweden is our neighbor country, and we have contacts in their archive. But their copy was not good. We wanted to present it in 35mm, and their copy wasn't good enough, so we couldn't borrow it. But they said there are more copies of this film, so we had to go around in the world and try to find this copy. There was a copy in the US, but you had to book it like a year before. So we ended up in Serbia, I think, found a copy, and we borrowed from their national archive. So we found the print there. Yeah. So it's sometimes a lot of detective work, but I have to say it's also for our festival in January. Not always so easy to find who has the rights for a film. So if you're going to work with film curating later, you will meet that challenge, I think. But it's also a little bit fun, I think.
Yeah. What was the other part?
I think also just that I guess, what are some of the considerations when you're showing kind of much earlier films to a contemporary audience? I know there's often kind of, there are issues now of how you contextualize the way that certain materials, certain topics and themes are presented, and those don't necessarily always sit well with a contemporary audience, and there's different attitudes towards race and gender and all these sorts of things, and I think that's a very, I guess, quite a hot topic now, because it's something that people really want to present in a way that shows that these things aren't necessarily how we still feel. But that's quite tricky sometimes. I wonder if you could say a bit about ways to get around that and ways to be sensitive about those topics, I guess.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, I think when you're curating a silent film festival, you have to tell me afterwards if you agree, but there's like several ways of thinking when you're curating. I think one point of view is that when they started making silent films back in 1885, I think it was, they didn't know what film was, because nobody had told a story through a film, so they were just filming things and they didn't know how they were going to use it. So I think that's an interesting aspect also of the film history, that in the beginning they were just experimenting and then maybe realizing, I can tell a story, or I can document something, like I make a documentary. But it's a really fascinating era, because there was no standard. I mean, now there's this Hollywood film, which is a standard of how you're going to make a film. And you have to relate to that, either you would like to or not. But then they could just experiment, and there's really like a lot of creativity in the silent film area, and that's also why it's so interesting.
And that's a really important thing to get across to people, that the cliche is understanding that silent film and film in the first 30, 40 years of production is crude and unsophisticated, when exactly what you say, it's actually all about experimenting and creating the language. And so the big thing is of our job is to challenge people's expectations, and it's not just
crude
Yeah.
and unsophisticated. And also, on another point, your point about finding a really good quality print, it's not scratched and it's not shown at the wrong speed, and it's, you know, it can actually be in beautiful colour and just like exploding those myths about what old film is. But carry on as well.
And then I think then also the experimenting is one way of looking at and also of choosing films, and then you have these people who really develop the art of silent films. Personally, I love Murnau's films, for example. He is a German expressionist, and for example, Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans, I think is so beautiful.
It was on in Glasgow Cathedral last Friday.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody went to see it there.
And he was probably really, you know, an artist, and he developed the art form. And then you can curate films who really shows, you know, this art form that film was and still is, and it's maybe even more pure in a way, because it's a silent film. You don't have all sound effects, for example, but they experiment a lot with light and the way they were filming. So you can curate silent films as an art form in a way, the art of film. But then you have your aspect that you were talking about. You can also curate something that is maybe political, or a topic, or something that is really relevant of today, and you can go back in time and you can look about what they were making films about, and you can try to make it relevant today. So, for example, one example we had is you have probably heard about Birth of a Nation, which was considered to be honoring Ku Klux Klan in a way, and it's considered to be very racist. So we had one musician, we have been working a lot with her, and she comes from Somalia in Africa, and she's a percussionist. And she wanted to make music, not to Birth of a Nation, but to another film with the same filmmaker, Griffith, and that was Intolerance. So she made her own project. She wanted to deal with all intolerance in the world through her performance, and I think it's 3 hours, the film, so it's a long performance without any breaks. And she was not alone in scene. She had one musician with her, like a laptop musician, but she was doing her own riot in a way, and dealing with the traumas of racism. So I mean, that's a way of making, and she just did it through the performance.
Yeah, so you talked last night about countering the cultural appropriation of that might be adopted by a film by subverting it by having somebody from the culture that's represented, in whichever way, creating the music and a new interpretation in their own way they want to express. But anybody watching any quantity of silent film, it won't be long before you come across objectionable representations of racial stereotypes. For example, sexism. Oh my God.
A lot of sexism.
It's just so endless.
Almost in every movie.
It's such a relief when you get a strong female character. But I think one way of addressing that and presenting that, and it's a responsibility, and you'll see it in any gallery setting or any setting, is to acknowledge that it's what's on the screen, and talk about it, and say, it can be as simple as saying this represents a belief system that isn't acceptable now. But then you can extend that conversation. So we had a conversation that was really interesting this year around disability and facial visible difference. And we just explored that, prompted by the facial scarring of a character in The Man Who Laughs, thank you. Which famously is supposedly the inspiration for the Joker in Batman, with the big carved grin on his face. But we just had a really good panel discussion with the charity that is exploring visible difference and prejudice, and just having those discussions.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just sort of that you can just basically flip it around and say this is a really great opportunity to kind of to be inspired to program more things, or to invite artists who really like challenge that, or to open up those topics a bit more. So in a way, those points of contention can really lead to like very fruitful kind of parts of the festival programming that you wouldn't necessarily get with other festivals, because you would never, you wouldn't really program a contemporary film if you felt, that person is not representing my views or the views that we feel are kind of current. But like you said, I think it's really interesting to show those films. There are so many kind of unexpected films that don't do that, and like, we had this great film called The Silent Enemy, which had a whole cast of Indigenous people, and I think people don't realise that there were people were thinking about those things in the early days of cinema too, and it's just that there's a whole host of different ways of dealing with them and representing them. So it's actually quite a kind of exciting, almost like you said, a playground of all these different views that were unregulated in a way. So maybe it's interesting to look back at that time and see that. And I guess you kind of touched on music, but we haven't really spoken about it that much, and I wondered if you could talk about how, programming film with live music and how that works. I was presenting about this trip yesterday, and somebody asked me interestingly about the musicians and whether they how they compose their pieces. Were they responding live and improvising to the film? And I actually said, I think there's a huge kind of scope of different approaches to accompanying accompanying silent film. And some of the acts that we saw in Tromsø, I feel, were a lot more used to working in kind of a genre like electronic music or maybe jazz, where there's a lot more improvisation and live DJ sets. So they're kind of maybe used to, as musicians, that more kind of live responsive thing, whereas maybe a lot of the musicians we work with at HippFest, they have a lot of planning that goes into their score, and there's so many different ways to respond to it, which is, I thought that was quite interesting, and maybe you could talk a bit about that.
I loved coming to your festival and hearing the amazing range of music you had, and it was so vibrant and just really exciting the way it brought in a different audience, maybe drawn by the music. Drawn first by the music. I don't know if that's true.
I think in our city, in Tromsø, and also actually the whole northern Norway, we don't have any film studies and no film curation studies. So we don't have like a lot of people who are really into archival films. But we have a music academy. So we have a lot of musicians in our city. So we realized that we need to also use the music, like, to market the silent film. I mean, through the music, they will be interested in silent films. So that's actually our plan, and that's a little bit how we work. So we try to have different kind of genres in films. I mean, drama, comedy, horror, things like that. But we're thinking the same with the music. We always want the pianist, because we think that's a really important experience. But then we have electronic music, rock, hardcore, classical music, jazz music, and also we have in our area the indigenous people, the Samis. So we also have sometimes joik and the Sami traditional music. So we try to have like a range of different kind of music genres as well as films.
Yeah, I think we do have a range. We have represented across those from not grunge or heavy metal, to be fair, but we have had electronica and jazz and experimental. Folk works really well with our audience, and again, if I'm programming Scottish related films, it's a perfect fit. But yes, I don't know if you've ever heard watched a silent film with without music at all, just watched it completely silent, and you should try that for a few minutes if you can bear it, just to see the difference it makes. But also if you've ever gone onto YouTube and watched a silent film with bad music on it, I think that's a really good education, because there are plenty of people that will just take a library piece of music and slap it over the top, and there's no cues for you, there's no, the best music, when it, whatever genre it is, it helps you connect with the film, and it points you in a not too directive a way, because everybody wants to enjoy the film and make it their own discovery through a film, but you know, just like if there's a character who's building up the nerve to ask somebody to marry them, you know, you want the music to say that as well. And that's it. And the people that we work with, some of the regulars who've been playing for silent film for 30, 40 years, what strikes me whenever I hear them talk about how they approach the film is that their way in is understanding what they're seeing in any given scene. You know, who's looking at who, what are they worried about, what's coming up, what's the lighting telling you, and that's all echoed in how they play. And it's just fantastic to hear.
Yeah, it really is. The music is really, it's with the film, it's not for the film, and it's really, it's a kind of an integral part. You can't really separate the two of them. Like you said, the film without music it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, and that's not how it's really intended to be seen. So they kind of come really hand in hand. And yeah.
I think also, since we're working with so many genres and so many different kinds of musicians, we have experienced a lot of different approaches to the composition. So we have some pianists who are just improvising, and also that's how a lot of pianists used to do it back in the days. I think most of the musicians compose a lot of themes, but maybe they improvise over the themes. And sometimes when I see the same performance several times, I see that it's different, depending on a little bit the mood of the musicians, and if they maybe, I don't know, had a new idea or whatever, or saw something new in the film.
And how the audience responds,
and the audience
it's a live performance.
So it's, but I think most of them compose. But I have experienced sometimes that we had, for example, a jazz band that they had our opening screening at one festival. And I realized after a while they were just playing their own music. I felt they didn't follow the movie at all.
It didn't?
No, that's how I felt. And then when I listened more to the record, I was like, they were just playing a song. So for me, that was not such a good experience. I think the musician really has to, follow the film, build up to something. But then many times also the musician can see new things, themselves, and it depends on their own experiences. For example, with sexism, I see when we have female musicians, a lot of times they interpret sexism in the film in their own ways, which I think is really cool and makes it very, very contemporary and very dramatic sometimes. And so I think
they're bringing a really personal response into the film, which then kind of opens up a different way of interpreting the scene.
And suddenly you feel, oh my God, this could have happened, also now. It's not just an old movie, it's something that happens to women So to me that's very moving when the musicians really bring some of their own experiences into the films.
I think that we're probably coming up to time for questions. Is there anything else that you wanted to say? Because I feel like we've covered a lot, but maybe you had a couple of other things to add.
It's just such a privilege, isn't it, to be involved in what we do.
I just want to say, I think what's interesting is when you work with film, you probably know this already because you've seen a lot of movies since you're studying film curating, but sound is, of course, a real big part of watching a film. I think it's 70% of the experience or something like that. That's what I read somewhere. When we have live music and new composed music, it really brings something new to the film and really changes the experience of the film.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sometimes we have had shows, for example, with A Trip to the Moon by the Lumiere brothers, and because it's a short film, so once we took...
Do you mean Méliès?
Méliès.
Yes.
What did I say? Lumiere.
Lumiere.
Méliès, sorry.
Both Frenchies.
French. We had we presented the same film 3 times with 3 different musical scores.
To the same audience?
To the same
Oh,
audience.
good
Just
idea.
we had just like a little break in between, and then the audience could see the difference between how much
really
the
nice.
music
Might
defines.
steal that idea. I was thinking, I don't know, maybe it'll come up in the questions, but something we haven't touched on is and I'm assuming this is something you'll cover in your studies, is around access and accessibility and being aware of how you make your festivals accessible. And we are very conscious that silent film has the potential to appeal and be accessible to audiences who are deaf and hard of hearing, although the music brings another dimension to that. But if you want, we can talk more about that and how we address making the festival accessible in various ways.
Yeah, so I mean, we do, like you said, it's kind of this unique opportunity really to be able to showcase, to be able to welcome people who have various kind of impairments to see the film and to experience it. And although we've been experimenting with this creative captioning.
So you saw in the little film that we had at the beginning about the inclusive ensemble, Sonic Bothy, and some of the musicians are hearing impaired, but they are improvising, and in order to improvise they need to be able to communicate with each other, and so they bring in a creative captioner who puts into text, into textual interpretation of what they're hearing, and then the other musician can respond to the textual interpretation instead of to the sound cue. So, but we hope to take that and share that with the audience as well, so that there could be a textual interpretation of the whole soundscape for a feature film, which we're excited about that.
Yeah, yeah, it's very exciting.
But yeah, questions.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions?
So how do you choose your films for the festival each year?
So the question was, how do you choose your films for the festival each year?
I think you are a little bit more lucky, because I think you have more slots. More films than we do, because we have our festival. Well, it's only 4 days plus school screenings. And we only have in the evening the shows in the evening, so we don't have that many films at the Silent Film Festival, which makes it really hard, I think, to choose what to present. And also, you want to present something new and something maybe innovative, something people haven't seen that much before. For example, new prints or restorations. And at the same time, you want people to experience the classics, because you always get new audiences. So it's really hard. And then I want all these genres. I want comedy, I want drama, I want horror or something experimental. So that's at least how I'm thinking when we are programming.
The balance, isn't it?
The balance,
Yeah, that's absolutely snap.
Yeah.
And then there are other factors which are money.
Yeah.
I have to say, if there's a fund floating around that suddenly opens up that is all about storytelling, which happened in Scotland 2 years ago, that is a cue to you as a curator to go and find the perfect film and the perfect artist to develop that theme, and then you apply for the money so you can do it.
And also we do a lot, I think that's also important to say, either you're working with silent films or with sound, modern films. It's also good to do we do a lot of collaborations. So we collaborate with the Insomnia Festival, the electronic music festival. They have like a talent program, so we cooperate with them. And we are cooperating with, have you heard about Knut Hamsun? He's a Norwegian writer. We have a museum in Norway, the Hamsun Museum, so we're next year we're collaborating with them about one of the films based on his books. So actually then they had the initiative, they wanted to do this film, and they contacted us, and wanted to do a collaboration. So that's also very nice when you have
Partnerships.
partnerships.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think you talked earlier about that finding a hook or a connection to draw in an audience. So you'll always have your eye on what might resonate for people at any given, like, you know, that phrase zeitgeist. So a few years ago, the book War Horse that was made into a play at the National Theatre and was made into a film, was it Steven Spielberg? You know, it was a big, everybody knew about War Horse. But what not many people knew was that it had been made, the same story was made as a silent film in the 1920s about a soldier who had, a man who had a horse, and he got drafted and the horse got drafted, and they loved each other and they were together on the front. And, you know, this is, so finding stories like that people are interested in now, but that they might not have realised that were told 100 years ago. It's a way to bring people in.
And I think also last couple of years we have seen a lot of conflicts. For example, Norway, where I live, is on the border to Russia. So, for example, the war between when Russia attacked Ukraine, it really, what can I say, since we're a neighboring country, we really felt the pressure because we have been trying, also our organization has been working a lot with Russia and Russian filmmakers and musicians. So, for example, in our program, we felt a need to address that. So then we were actually looking for films that are relevant for our time. So we, for example, programmed Arsenal by Dovchenko. And Alexander with the Ukrainian way of writing, not the Russian. So there was like a lot of new, just presenting that film also brought up a lot of conflicts and reactions, and so which is interesting and sometimes hard, but also very relevant, because you also have to challenge yourself and also your audience.
And I think also because of with the silent film, you travel to other festivals and you see other presentations all the time, and you're aware of the musicians as well who are working in the kind of film performance kind of circle, and that's how you pick up new commissions and new ideas as well. So I guess you do a fair amount of travelling and visiting other festivals, and just having an eye on what other festivals are doing, because it's a big sort of, like I said, it's an ecosystem, and there are things that you share and crossovers.
It is, again, it's a balance, because we were just, there's an archivist that we love in Sweden called Magnus, who I talked to about program ideas, but he would say, well, there's this lovely film, but I don't know if you want to show that because it got showed recently in Bonn, so maybe it's not fresh enough, you know. And so there's like and then there's the other idea of, well, it was a big success in Pordenone, so bring it back to audiences here who don't have the chance to go there. It's like you don't want your full program to look like the replica of somebody else's. It has to be connected and make sense for where you are, but also have with toes in dips in international festivals.
Always steal from others, but you have to do it,
in your own way.
Make it your own way.
I suppose it's an additional challenge, is that I mean, sometimes there's new films that are kind of remastered and restored, but there's there's a finite amount of films from the silent era out there, so it's an additional challenge to kind of make those presentations new and to discover new things each time. So it's kind of, it's interesting.
And also, if you think international, like you are, a lot of people a lot of you are from China, for example. I mean, how many Chinese silent films have we seen? We've seen some, but I mean, there's probably a lot.
There's a lot lost, but we show a Chinese silent film feature every year, and we have been for the last 10 years.
That's great.
So, should just flag that up. It'll probably be on the Saturday. And in fact, we started off with quite small audiences, but they've really built up over the years, and it's just fun because they're just, you're right, they don't get shown.
I think you have an potential audience here.
Lili Lee, I don't know if you know her, a really fantastic silent film actress. It's funny, there's a way that other cultures are appropriated even in the compliments, so it's like she's the Chinese Mae West or something. You know, they always have to say the Chinese Mae West or the Chinese Greta Garbo or the Chinese this, that, and the other. But anyway, yeah.
So interesting to hear you talk about the kind of expressive, interpretive potential of the music, and I was just wondering, do you primarily do kind of instrumental accompaniment? Do you ever have vocals, and how do you feel about that as a kind of form for live accompaniment for film?
Do you want to go? I don't. It's an interesting one. I've heard it done in a way. Vocals also don't have to necessarily be clearly audible words like a song. I've heard it done in a way that I found quite heavy on the film. But we had a beautiful film this year, or was it last year? It's going to be reprised actually in Glasgow in November. Journey to the
19th,
Isles.
I believe.
And that was a film about a Gaelic song collector. Well, Marjorie Kennedy Fraser filmed her work collecting songs in the Hebrides, and these were her home movies. And we had a Gaelic musician and singer accompanying that, and it was totally appropriate to have some Gaelic song over that, for example. And then there's ways to use voice like an instrument, like the Sami.
Yeah, we have the Sami yoik, which is not words, but singing, and that's really nice to use if it's relevant. But I also feel words are many times difficult, because then you have to like add an extra layer to the film.
It jolts you out a little bit of a
we did an experiment with some musician. We didn't present it at the Silent Film Festival. We had a project where there was this pop musician. He put words to a short experimental short film, and what's difficult is that you really start thinking so much about the words sometimes that you forget maybe the film and the story. So for me, I prefer, I love that people use their voice, but more as an instrument, not like text written music.
I agree. But everyone's got their own preference.
But probably it's possible too to do something good. I've been thinking a lot about rap, because I would really like, hip hop rap, and a silent film. And I like thinking about how could that work. So I would really like to try it actually. I have no idea how.
Oh, we'll watch that space. That sounds interesting. Or listen to that space. It sounds interesting. Did you say, is it sometimes inappropriate for children to watch? Did you say?
Yeah.
I think a lot, we have in this country the British Board of Film Classification, but not all films are classified by the British Board of Film Classification, and we will often show films that haven't been, and so we watch and take a view as to the recommended age. We've never been in the situation where we've said to somebody, you can't come in, because people do. It's not the law, but people do refer to our guidance. So we would show a film and say this is actually best if you're age 15 up or over, in the same way as any film is certified. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and we also we have our volunteers who we brief about various kind of warnings, and actually that goes back to maybe talking about the kind of sensitivities around a film rather than necessarily like the age suitability. Like some films will have, for example, we had a film that had kind of animal cruelty in it, which is part of the kind of a hunting scene, but there are certain things that we can kind of warn people about so that they can make their own decision about whether they feel like that film's for them or it's comfortable for them to see. But it's always interesting, because I think that you often end up in conversations with people about that, and it's another chance to kind of open up a debate, I guess. Do you have a similar tactic?
We also have the same issue with the film festival in January, that we present a lot of films that's not censored in Norway, and now actually they changed the law in Norway so that each distributor can put the age limit themselves. We did have like a governmental board did that, but now it's each distributor. So And then we are responsible when we import films to Norway. So we have to think about that always. Which group is this film for, and which group is it maybe not for? So it's something we actually think a lot about, but not just inappropriate content, but also I think as you say, all kinds of content. I mean, who's the target group for this film, both in age and in types and in. Is it for students or is it for retired people? I don't know. Yeah,
it's interesting because the certificate is a blunt tool in a way. Like we had a film that was a U certificate, essentially, Peter Pan, and now audiences might think that that's the cue to bring their 5-year-old to that film, but there's nothing in it that's going to be distressing, but it just might bore them to tears just because it's a U. But on the other hand, if it's Laurel and Hardy, like you saw there, they'll laugh their socks off. So, like you say, it's your role perhaps to explain who this might appeal to, without being too determinating. But.
And for example, for our festival in January, I always write. This is a film with a slow tempo, for example, so like, you know, it's a little bit boring. You have to be very patient.
You could go to the loo here and here and here.
Or we write, this is the most challenging film.
Reading between the lines.
Yeah, or if it's a lot of violence or sexual content, we have to kind of write somehow a little bit of warning so that people know and that they really choose themselves to watch this.
Because better when they come and make the decision than when they're upset arguing in the foyer outside because they're.
But what is a little bit difficult is that every person is different, and sometimes I meet people who watch something in a film that they thought were really scary or disturbing or difficult, although I never could have imagined that it would be. So that happens sometimes. I mean, that people have some kind of experience and which resonates with them and the film. So it's like the film touched something in them that maybe wouldn't touch another person. And of course, that's what's really fascinating about films as well.
It might be a silly question, but I don't know if you both have a favourite experience of screening, so whether your own festival or elsewhere, or something that was just a kind of standout, memorable experience.
What a nice question. I wish I should have prepared for. I'll let you do. What do you think, Brendan?
I think for me, it's what I like about silent films is that you think it's something really old-fashioned and something that for old people who are interested in archives and history, but it's really like very universal. I mean, the humor is universal, especially the slapstick. A lot of the drama and conflicts and love and war is also universal. So I think what fascinates me is that a lot of often the experience with silent films is so universal, and a lot of people can relate to the films. But for me, maybe my first silent film was.
Which was?
It was The Man with the Movie Camera, and it was I was really into electronic music when I was probably your age, and it was we had a musician in Tromsø who was quite famous at the time. His artist name is Biosphere. You should check him out. He kind of created the ambient music genre in the electronic music, I mean, in the world. And he and another musician his name is Per Martinsen, they played to The Man with the Movie Camera. And for me to see that the genre that I loved it fitted so well with the old film. It was like, a
revelation.
I really, it was so amazing. I really understood something.
That was fantastic.
And I had a great experience. So for me, that was quite big. And the other really big experience I had was our film festival was presenting a Sami film, Veivisen. Hva heter det på engelsk? I have to ask my husband. Pathfinder. It's a Sami film made by a North Norwegian Sami director his name is Nils Gaup, And this film was made in, I think, 1990 or something like that. And it's a sound film. But we decided we asked the director if we could make a whole new, present it as a silent film and make a whole new score for the film with Sami musicians.
Oh, wow.
And we presented that both in Tromsø, but we also did it in Berlin, in this cinema called Babylon. Have you been there? It's a round
I've seen
cinema,
pictures.
which has really amazing acoustics. And to see this film there, I don't know, in Berlin and with a lot of people and this new Sami music, it was just an amazing experience.
Wow. Yeah. I think one thing that strikes me in our job is that when I imagine if you're curating a regular film festival with new releases, you kind of know what's going to happen when you put it up in front. So if you go to Toronto and you choose your film and you bring it back to Edinburgh and you screen it at Filmhouse or wherever, you kind of know what you're getting. But for us, with the silent film particularly, I can see a film on my laptop and I can think, I think that would be fantastic if that was accompanied by Stephen Horn and Elizabeth Jane Baldry on the harp. I'm going to ask them, and then they go off and they prepare. And it's only when I'm in the cinema with the audience, with those musicians in that film, that it's finally I get to see what I thought might happen, and then it happens, and in a way that I couldn't have imagined. It's just a wonderful. You can curate the program, and it's all there, and it's printed, and it's confirmed, and people have bought the tickets. But the actual experience that you're going to have, is you just don't know what it's going to be till you get there, and that's. So each time it's incredible and exciting.
But I think also especially to present silent films for children, because they laugh so much more than the grown-ups. So it's like you can just feel, the atmosphere, and they're laughing and laughing, and
nothing like it.
It's nothing like it. I mean, the first time we did it actually on our silent film festival, I was sitting in the office, and there was, because it's upstairs, and downstairs we have the cinema. And the woman who was the director then, she came and said to us all, you have to come down and experience this. You have to be in the cinema. And we came down and we were like, wow, this was really a hit.
I just have one final question because we're almost finished. But I guess we have some specific ways at the Hippodrome that you can get involved. But I'll maybe ask you a more general question, Lisa, which is, what would you advise? How would you advise people to get involved in festivals, like if they're wanting to start out, and what's some things that they can do to kind of get some experience in festivals?
I think it's, of course, to be a volunteer. I mean, I also used to work as a volunteer at our film festival in January. That's how I started out. And I think that's a way to connect to the festival, because you participate, and also in all our festivals, we have actually 3, and we also have a children's film festival. You get this accreditation or this free pass, so you can watch as many films as you would like to. So you also get to watch a lot of films, but you are also part of the festival. You're taking part, and you're doing something that the festival needs, and you get new friends, and hopefully you then also get to know the people in the festival, and that's like you can start a connection, for example, if you're interested in curating the films. So I think, and also I think to join a film club is also very good because we collaborate a lot with film clubs.
What she said.
And to go to festivals. Go to as many as you can.
We had a volunteer a few years ago called Jo Reed, and I had her back at my cinema last month, presenting a film that she had curated and edited together from archive film, and she said, it wasn't untrue to say that she'd got the archive bug at our festival, and now she's made this wonderful film. She's got funding. She's Freedom Machine. Sorry, I should have said it's the Freedom Machine, and it's about bicycles in women specifically, actually women reclaiming their freedom through bicycles, and it's just a lovely archive compilation, and that felt a lovely full circle.
Wonderful.
And aside from volunteering, which you can do at our film festival, we're also I'm going to be developing a young programmers kind of committees. So we have a mini festival which is going on right now called Taste of Silence. So sort of autumn we have 3 or 4 screenings, and we're hopefully going to be working with a group of young people to develop that programme to curate 3 or 4 screenings this time next year. So if you'd be interested in joining that, that would be a really great opportunity to get some experience in curating film, and keep an eye on our website and our social media, because we'll be kind of recruiting for that quite soon. I think that's kind of all we have time for, but thank you so much for inviting us.
Let's do a proper thank you.